Welcome to So Very Easy. My name is Laura, and today let's make a star block quilt pattern. Now this is going to be made out of squares, and the fun part is you get to choose what size square you want to use. This pattern can be made with any size squares, which means you can use pre-cuts. I'm going to make my squares out of only 2 different colors. This fabric is from Dear Stella. I'm going to use a high contrast, and for the border I'm going to do a matching fabric to go with the Dear Stella, and of course some binding. This is all that I'm going to need. Now the fabric requirements are going to be different for every single person. It'll all depend on the size squares that you use and how many blocks you're going to make. I've chosen my block sizes to be 6 inches. Very simply because I have a 6-inch ruler. So it's fast and easy to cut. I was able to use the ruler to cut the width of the fabric, and then from there I just took the width and cut them all in. To do this, we're going to place 2 fabrics together. If you're going to be using pre-cuts, you're just wanting to choose a light and a dark, something that's going to have a contrast. But in this case, since I'm only using 2 fabrics, I'm just going to put the 2 fabrics together. I don't mind cutting 4 pieces of fabric together at the same time. So I'm going to put 2 of the red and 2 of my secondary fabric, and all the fabrics are going to be facing up. Keeping all the fabrics facing up, we're going to want to cut a wedge out. Starting in the corner, we need to cut somewhere along the bottom. Now you can do these in random sizes, or you can have them all go the same. I'm going to choose about a 2.5 inch mark along the bottom. Put my ruler up at the top and somewhere around that 2.5 inch mark. You could do them all the same, or you can just do them random, because we're going to sew these 4 together and then we'll cut each pile individual. Throughout this project, the only thing really you want to keep in mind is to keep those lines going in the same direction. You're starting up in this corner and you're going to go down. That is what you're going to want to maintain throughout. If you're cutting on the other directions, your stars are not going to match up. So just be consistent on where your top point is going to be. From here, we're going to re-sew these together. I'm going to put the 2 floral onto the solid and the solid onto the floral. And I'm going to sew the ones that I've cut together and then go and cut the next. That way I don't have to worry about that exact measurement. You also don't need to worry about the exact measurement when you go to sew them together. To match up that edge, what you need to do is match up that straight edge and bring this down just a little bit so you have a 1/4 inch hanging off the bottom. And then stitch a 1/4 inch all the way coming up. We're going to be able to trim these down after, so we don't have to be exact. Somewhere around a 1/4 inch and then stitch up. We need to do this to all of the blocks. When those corner pieces are put on, you're going to have units that look like this. They're the same, but in reverse. It will be handy if you take those seams and press them to this largest side. And to square them up, we're going to use this little point right up at the top. This little corner is going to be our main corner to square up the blocks. And you can use any size square that you have. We're going to take the corner of this square ruler and place it right in that corner. So the corner of the square ruler right in that corner. And I have a little bit of fabric on both sides. I can trim that off. From there, I'm just going to be able to slide that ruler to a measurement that I want. And in this case, I want to square up all of these blocks to 5 inches. So depending on the size square that you've started with, yours might be a little different. You just want to find a square size that's going to fit your block. So I have the 5 inch mark on the ruler, and I can trim off the edges. And by trimming off all these edges, my block is going to be nice and square. And with those edges trimmed, I have a 5 inch block with that point right up at the corner. If you happen to have a ruler that's going to fit, be sure to use it. For example, this is a 5-inch ruler. So I'm going to be able to use this and cut all the way around. I'm going to match up one corner with that point. And I'm able to move this ruler pivoting right from this point. This is not going to be important because they don't match up anywhere. So that point is right in the corner. I'm going to be able to trim off all the outside edges. I'm going to cut the one, second side, third, fourth. Now when I lift it up, I have the perfect 5-inch block. I want to square up all of my blocks the same size square. So I have all of the one side and all of the other side. And this is all we need to do to make these blocks. This is a great beginner block to make. Matching up those edges as you stitch are not crucial. And that 1/4-inch seam allowance can be a little off and it's going to be fine. When you trim it up, it'll all turn out the same. It's great for scraps and it's great for pre-cuts. Now we can put these together. There are some fun different ways we can put these together. To make the star, we're going to need 4 blocks. The smaller pieces are going to go in towards the center. If you use 2 of the dark blocks and 2 of the light blocks, you will end up with this sort of a snail block look. If you use both blocks the same color, you really notice the star. Even in the reverse, because the fabrics were high contrast, you really notice those stars. There is another way we can put them together. If we have all the points going in the same direction, but we've changed the blocks to every other one, when they're put together and then sewn together in rows, you have this unusual shape. We can also switch them up. One more different shape. We can keep switching them and it's going to give us one more different shape. There's a lot of different ways you're going to be able to play with these blocks and put them together. As you keep putting these together, they're going to continuously make a different shape. The block that we use, the 2 different patterns in each pinwheel, continues the pattern as you go along. When the pinwheels or the stars are put together so that the fabrics are matching, you really notice these stars. If you take the points and have all the points matching inside instead of the larger piece and put them all together, it really does look like a pinwheel, but the pinwheels join the next colors. Some of the blocks are going to look better if they're sewn together in units of 4, and that 4 is what you're going to keep in mind as you lay out the quilt. If you add an extra row that is not a 4 but is a 2, it might give you the appearance that the star is cut off. Where some units, it won't matter how they're put together or how many they're put together. The pattern is always going to continue. I'm going to put the quilt together with this unit. I'm going to be able to take these 2 stacks to the sewing machine and chain piece them. I want that cut corner in the center with that point on the outside. None of those seams are matching up, so it's going to be really quick and easy. That first seam we did was not so important to keep that 1/4 inch. But if we can maintain a 1/4 inch along the rest of it, it's going to be easy to put together. I have all my units of 2 sewn together. I'm going to be able to take those and just switch them and sew them together a 1/4 inch. So I will be making units of 4. With those 2 units sewn together, I'm going to take the seams and press them in opposite directions. So I'm going to open up this little piece by just taking off a couple of threads, and I'm not going to cut the threads, just leave the threads, and have the seam going in one direction and the seam going in the opposite. I'm going to be able to sew my rows together. I'm going to have 4 squares per row, and I'm going to have a total of 4 rows. As you sew the 4 patches together, using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, You're going to notice that you don't come right to this tip. So that point, you do not stitch through. They're inside the pattern. They don't come right to this area. So it's going to continue to be a very quick and easy block to put together. The body of the quilt is done. Now you can go as big as you'd like and as long as you like. I've added 2 borders on. The first border was cut at 1 inch. Once the seams have been done, it's a small little 1/2 inch border. The next one was cut at 5 inches. And that gives a nice big border for the eyes to rest on. And this works out to be about a 46-inch square quilt. The amount of fabric that I used was 1 yard of this small floral print and 3/4 of a yard for the border. Now they could be the same. For this burgundy, 1 1/4 yards will work. That will give us the blocks, the little strip, and it's going to give us enough binding to finish the quilt. This is such a versatile block. You start with the size square that you want, you cut the wedge the size you want, then you square it up, sew it back together, well, and you can turn it many different ways to get a quilt. I would love to see how you make this block. Thank you for joining me today on Sew Very Easy. Feel free to subscribe, and as always, come on back. Let's see what we're sewing next time in the sewing room. Bye for now.